What is up, champion puppy owners? Do you want a streamlined ownership experience? Do you want a socialized dog with manners, responsiveness, and general life skills? Great, you're in the right place. This podcast is for the accountable puppy owner who wants to better know and grow their dog. Welcome to or welcome back. So what we're talking about this week is some training tools that I use on a daily for the dogs I train and that I recommend to my clients, champion puppy owners, who are developing dogs full of potential that are referred to as champions. We just got to extract that greatness out of them, right? And these tools are going to help us do just that. So the first week in this series, we talked about bones. Bones are huge. I had about a half a dozen bones I've reviewed with you to really be able to have you wrap your head around how to best utilize them, because that's what bridges the periods of activity with sleeping, right? So we bridge that with bones. And then from there, we talked about crate and confinement. Then after that, we talked about tug toys and food puzzles. Now we're on to talking about my other tools to really round things out. So we started out this week talking about properly fitting collar. Then from there, we started talking about leashes. Now I kind of skipped over talking about harnesses. I do have some harnesses available at championdogproducts.com. And for some of you, you're just going to use a harness temporarily for the first couple months of your puppy's time in your home. And then from there, you'll transition to a collar for life. For others with little small dogs, typically under about like 15 pounds or so, you're going to stick with a harness for life. And the main thing with a harness is getting something that fits correctly and that you have on nice and tight. Right. So I have my favorite harnesses there for purchase at championdogproducts.com. Harnesses, and same with collars. It's going to be very hard sometimes to size. So really take your time and use the measurements that you see on that product page. And just know sometimes it just doesn't always go correct if you kind of don't measure correctly or don't measure at all. So just don't get too upset if you do have to return something or just kind of, give something to another dog in your life. That's what I end up doing more often than not. So what we're going to talk about on today's podcast is going to be dog cots. The reason why I love a raised dog bed is because it creates a barrier. Like there's an actual 6-inch to 8-inch barrier between where your dog's at and hovering over top of the ground. And so there's a nice built-in physical barrier that help your dogs keep that sit stay. So remember, a lot of times when we use dog bed, it's going to be for either that all day, I need you sitting here for a half hour, 40 minutes, chewing the bone, leave the rest of the world alone. It's your bone or taking a nap. That's it. I don't exist but to keep you here next to me. And the other time where you might use a dog bed is for when you're maybe doing some active training. Typically, we would train with this dog bed in a way that helps, again, promote your puppy's sit stays. So that way, when you're not on a raised surface like this dog bed, I should say when your puppy's not on a raised surface like this dog bed, then your puppy's still going to have worked through some of their own capabilities as far as it pertains to impulse control. All right. So next, I want to talk about really how best to roll out the use of a dog bed. If you remember back, if you've been listening for the last couple weeks, and I talked about how best to intro a crate, it's the exact same way. The only difference is typically with a raised dog bed, I'll put that in the corner. That way it makes it less areas where a dog might try to pop up off of it. And it really only allows the long rectangle side and then the short rectangle side of the dog bed to really, for a puppy to be able to leave. So eventually you can train with the raised dog bed in the middle of a room, but initially I like to train with them in the corner. Again, just less areas for your dog to pop up off of, and it just cuts that space in half, okay? You're initially just gonna say, go to your bed, take some food, throw it on the dog's bed. Now, if your puppy is super food motivated, you should just be able to kind of breadcrumb your way up on there. So that what I mean by that is you're just going to put a line of kibble where your puppy's going to eat, and then eventually get further and further up there. Sometimes I'll even throw down more kibble on that dog bed just for a puppy, just to see that and get even more excited, and without thinking, step up on that dog bed. That's really what we want. We don't want your puppy overthinking, like, what the heck is this? We want your puppy in a food zone. Now, if you have the kind of dog that, like, it's going to be, that's just not going to happen. One, I want you to just give it the college try. Just maybe have your dog put its face on there where it's eating the food off of it, but putting no paws on there. Then maybe just one paw, then the second paw, and then the third paw and fourth paw. And how you're going to do that is repetitiously putting the food really close to the end of the raised dog bed. And then after that rep, maybe giving your dog a little break, walking back over to it, putting the food a little bit further in towards the middle, giving your dog a break, like literally just walking away and walking right back. It's not a long intermission. It's just enough to have your dog eat and then kind of hit reset, come back and put a food closer and closer to the middle of that dog bed until your puppy starts to progressively get up on that dog bed. That way you don't really have to force it. Now, a way to get over the dog that won't get on the dog bed at all is to do some leash training with your puppy in advance. So I'm kind of jumping around because this is a podcast, it's not the course, but ideally I would have had you as an owner doing some pressure present drill where we do pressure on the leash, give your dog food, pressure on the leash, we drop food on the ground, and we just get your dog in the habit of going with that leash pressure over and over again. Then we work on leash pressure to have your dog sit. I talked a little bit about that when we talked about umbilical cord training, and I even brought up the use of this dog bed on that podcast episode. And so if your dog is hesitating, like going up and curious, but ultimately kind of hesitating, at the very tail end, where you feel like you've taken the food conditioning as far as you possibly can to lure your puppy up on that dog bed, you can give a little, just the tiniest little pop on that leash to get your dog over that mental hump, that mental and physical hump, I should say. And then from there, just start giving your dog a bunch of food, whether it be from your hand or putting the food on the actual dog bed. Now, typically, I don't recommend putting food on the ground. I'll do it for the crate rollout, and I'll do it for the dog bed rollout, and sometimes I'll even do pressure drop it when I'm rolling out the usage of the leash. But normally, when you're giving your dog its piece of food, its reward, it's going right to its mouth. You're holding your hand in a specific way. Basically, you're putting the piece of kibble between your thumb, the end of your thumb, like the side of it, and the start to your pointer finger, and you're turning your hand into a little bit of a bowl. So it's almost like the Miss America like wave, where you're giving that like pageant wave. It's kind of like you're turning your hand into a bowl and just kind of putting one piece of kibble in between your thumb and your pointer finger, like on the side there, creating a little bowl for your dog to eat that piece of kibble out of. But in this case, okay, going back to the task at hand, you're just going to actually be throwing that food on the dog bed. So once your dog eats that food out of your hand, it's on the dog bed for the first time, immediately get your dog off the dog bed. So your dog's going to eat some food that you throw down. It might just sit there and eat from your hand. You might throw some more food down, have it eat like repetitiously. And then as soon as your dog's done eating, after about a couple seconds, 10 seconds, however long, get your dog off that dog bed and then just do it again. What we want to do is not really force your dog to stay on the dog bed at first. All we want to do is warm your dog up to being comfortable with the concept of the dog cot. We want for your puppy to like walk around on it, feel its feet kind of like move down on like any other surface it's ever felt, and care more about the food, and then just getting into the momentous flow of being taken on and off the dog bed repetitiously and getting hooked up than it really cares about its paws like giving way as it steps on that dog bed. Because for you and I, it doesn't matter too much. Like we might be able to understand like this is how a trampoline feels. We understand that a trampoline feels different than the grass, where your puppy really can't rationalize like that. So they just have to be conditioned to not care. And so that's how I want you to roll out the dog cot. Now, once your dog gets it, likes it, understands it, then from there, you can start to have your dog actually go to it on command and stay there. So I'll talk a little bit about that now, but I'm going to save a lot of that for future podcasts, and we certainly cover that in our course. And so just something you can to keep in mind as you're rolling out the dog cot. You might do some other drills that you've been working on. You might say, go to your crate, and just to mix it up. That way you give your puppy some layups and you're not just drilling the dog cot over and over again. That's a reoccurring theme is, if you're introducing something new, doing something that your dog is already doing well with and understand. And then that way you can get it more into like a confident food drive and like a training trance where you have some momentum on your side versus like kind of forcing the training. All right. If you're forcing it, you're probably doing something wrong. Not always, but 99% of the time. Sometimes if you have a dog that just doesn't want any food, doesn't want to play, you've waited out, you've done patience, you've really exhausted all options. At some point, you have to get that dog off that X, off that current position. But I'm not in a rush to do that. I want to do that as methodically as possible. And so you should never really feel like you're having to push the training on your dog. If that's the case, there's probably something that we can do to create a better value proposition or maybe move forward a little bit more methodically with baby steps, right? Okay. So at this point, you have the dog cot, the raised dog bed, and you've said, go to your cot, and your dog's on a leash. You've put some food right at the very end of the dog cot. And then from there, you let your dog leave. And then you say, go to your dog cot. Boom. Do it again. I say cot. I say bed. So I don't say dog cot. I say, go to your bed. And then from there, I just put the food like closer and closer to the middle. And then from there, once you get your dog on that actual dog cot, you're in a jackpot, and then immediately take your dog off, maybe do something else, and then boom, bring your dog back and do it again in a way that's flowing. Then from there, once your dog kind of gets it, you've been working sit, stay, stairs off the dog cot, bring your dog over there and start to do some active drills with your dog where you're doing sit, stay, stairs, releasing your dog again, maybe bringing your dog back, doing sit, stay, stare at the food bowl. I typically roll out the dog cot after I've got a good week and a half of training where you're actively doing stairs in your stays. And it's at this point where you can start to use the dog cot from a management standpoint, where if your dog goes to leave this actual dog cot, you can cut it off with body language just by stepping in towards it very quickly. We demo this when we do food-based training, like it's how you keep your dog in the pocket right in front of you. And it's going to be the same thing. The only difference is your dog's on this raised dog bed. And if it tries to go over that threshold on the half of the dog cot that's exposed, you're going to give a quick little pop on that leash. Now, you're going to do that while you jolt your body in, and you might even go, as your dog goes to leave. And then what you can start doing is you can walk away just slightly, just take a half a step back, and your puppy's going to think, if my owner's going, I'm going. And then they're going to go to make a jailbreak for it. At which point you're going to remind your puppy, just because I leave doesn't mean you get to leave. And at that point, you're going to quick pop your body back, pop that leash slightly, and go as your puppy goes to leave until your puppy gets the message, just like what we did when we kept shutting that gate door, until your puppy understands, listen, you don't leave your crate until I release you, until I say break. You don't leave your dog bed just because I'm moving around doesn't mean you get to move around. Something else that will make this very useful for you is by having your dog chew on the dog cot when you're not actively training with it. So you're going to both do coaching reps, like active training on this dog cot, and that's going to set you up for success when you have your dog go to chew on this dog cot. So what I like about the ones that we sell is that they're collapsible. The small and medium ones, you don't have to do anything with them. They come like you just got to get them out of the packaging, ready to rock and roll. I paid extra for them. They're like a little bit more difficult for me to ship. But for me, I don't like assembling things. I like plug and play. That's why I went with this particular model of dog cots within the Champion Dog Products line. The bigger ones, for the bigger guys, the 4 foot long dog cots, You do have to initially assemble them, but then after that, you can just fold them up and bring them with you. So you can take them from room to room, or you can travel with them. They're very travel conducive. So hopefully you feel like a dog cot is going to allow you to get that much further along with your sit stays. Give your dog a place where it can really feel comfortable and get used to. So just like with the crate, initially a dog might not love it, but the hope is that a dog becomes neutral, or with most dogs, they learn to love their crate. And the same is that much truer when it comes to the use of a raised dog bed. And something that you can do is get blankets. We do sell dog specific blankets. They're just regular fleece blankets. They just have like dog patterns on them. And you can put a blanket down on top of these dog cots, and then every couple of days just wash it, right? That way it's a lot more sanitary than even washable dog beds. So I very much like the raised dog beds. Can a dog chew them? Of course they can, but you're supposed to watch your dog so that doesn't happen, all right? So using raised dog beds will take your sit stays, your management to the next level, and really just have your dog feel at home in a more sedentary position. And isn't that what you want? When it's time to be active, let's be active. When it's time to chew, let's sit down and chew. When it's time to sleep, sit there and sleep. Another benefit to these is for those of you in hot or cold climates, it gets your dog off the cold floor, or it gets your dog off the hot floor, respectively. And they're very breathable. So check out the dog cots. I think you'll really like how much easier it gets some of these concepts to stick. And then from there, it gets you where you don't have to guide these. And then your dog is going to be more prone just to sit there on his raised dog bed and chew the bone while you get work done, watch TV, or just live your life in a nice, compartmentalized way where you don't feel like you're nonstop having your day interrupted being reactive with your puppy. All right, guys, I got some more tools coming down the pipeline for you. I'm super excited to be sharing with you on next podcast. So with that said, if you haven't already subscribed, give this a subscribe. That way you won't miss a single episode. I'll be anxiously waiting for you here in the podcast tomorrow. Remember, champion puppy owner, action over anxiety, discipline equals freedom. Take the next step, do what you know how to do. Drive the puppy training process. Truly commit yourself to this and hit it hard for a short period of time so you can stop working on your dog and simply enjoy them. I'll see you next time.